It was the roar that shook the arena, a sound that echoed not just in the ears of fans, but deep in the veins of the WWE universe. When Goldberg's music hit that night in 2016, something extraordinary happened. Fans weren't just cheering, they were reliving a ghost of WCW dominance, a ghost of a warrior who had once speared his way into legend. But what no one knew then was that this return wouldn't be about victories. It would be about controversy, buried stars, and a path paved with frustration. Goldberg wasn't just back, he was back to rewrite, to reclaim, and to possibly ruin. The return wasn't planned for the sake of nostalgia. WWE had a vision. They wanted fireworks before the curtain dropped on Goldberg's career. The man who once tore through rosters like paper was now being brought back as a mythical beast, larger than life and stronger than time. But here's the thing, the business had changed. Fans now demanded storytelling, consistency, and earned victories. And Goldberg? He was still built for squash matches and silent dominance. That clash of eras was about to shake the foundation of WWE. The path was clear. Set Goldberg up for one final glorious ride. Matches would be short, explosive, and unforgettable. But to achieve that, WWE would need to make sacrifices. Big ones. Names would have to fall. Champions would have to bow. All to make the myth feel real again. It was never just about Goldberg. It was about what WWE was willing to risk to make him a god again. And then came the first major crack. Fastlane 2017. Kevin Owens, the reigning Universal Champion, had carved his legacy with charisma, intelligence, and brutal match performances. Fans respected him. He was building momentum. But in walked Goldberg. No build, no feud, just an entrance and a spear. Within seconds, KO's entire reign was demolished. Not because of a story, but because Goldberg had to look unstoppable for WrestleMania. The silence in the crowd wasn't awe, it was disappointment. Owens never stood a chance. Literally. Before fans could even blink, the bell rang, and Goldberg was already celebrating. This wasn't the Goldberg of WCW. This was something else, something force-fed. A legend who didn't need to prove himself anymore, yet was being handed gold by tearing down the current pillars of WWE. And it didn't stop there. The next victim was far more protected, far more loved, and far more horrifying. Enter the Fiend, Bray Wyatt's dark, twisted alter ego. A character so powerful, so psychologically chilling, that even John Cena fell victim to his mythos. The Fiend wasn't just unbeatable, he was untouchable. Until, of course, he ran into Goldberg at Super Showdown 2020. Fans thought they were about to see the ultimate clash, supernatural terror versus the last true warrior. What they got instead was heartbreak. In a match that lasted only minutes, Goldberg squashed the Fiend. It wasn't a contest, it wasn't a war, it was a demolition. And just like that, the Fiend's mystique was gone. The thing that made him so compelling, his psychological dominance, his near immortality, was snapped in half with a spear and a jackhammer. The backlash was instant. Social media exploded. Fans weren't just angry, they were betrayed. The WWE Universe had seen this before, legends being pushed at the cost of full-time performers. But this felt different. The Fiend represented creativity, evolution, and horror-themed brilliance. And now, he had been fed to a man who didn't need it, a man who was already in the Hall of Fame, metaphorically speaking. Goldberg's win wasn't earned, it was handed, and the damage it left behind was deep. Why would WWE make that choice? Was it purely ratings? Was it nostalgia? Or was it Goldberg himself, unwilling to lose on his way out? The questions haunted fans for months. Bray Wyatt, once the most innovative character of the modern era, disappeared into creative limbo. And Goldberg? He held the Universal Championship. Again. And fans were growing tired. This wasn't the triumphant return many had hoped for. It was a legacy being rewritten by force. For every fan that cheered Goldberg's intensity, there were dozens groaning at the predictability. The spear, the jackhammer, the quick win, it was all too familiar, too outdated. And the worst part? WWE wasn't listening. The myth was back. But the magic? That was fading fast. And yet, despite everything, despite squashing beloved stars and hijacking title scenes, Goldberg was not done. WWE had one final mission for him. One final opponent who could either redeem or completely shatter his legacy. And this time, they weren't looking for a fair fight. They were setting up something even more polarizing, a collision that would test not just Goldberg's body, but the patience of the entire WWE universe. Who was this opponent? Why was this match so important? And could Goldberg finally deliver a performance that didn't divide fans, but united them? Part 2 will dive into the match that could have ended it all, or saved it. A war between a legend and a powerhouse. A moment that still has the wrestling world buzzing. The announcement dropped like a bomb. Goldberg versus Gunther for the World Championship at Saturday night's main event. It wasn't just another match. It was a final chapter being written before the book was even closed. Fans didn't know whether to cheer or brace for heartbreak. Goldberg, the spear-throwing titan of yesteryear, was about to stand toe-to-toe with the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of the modern era, a wrestler who redefined brutality and precision in the ring. The stakes weren't just high, they were historical. Gunther wasn't like the others Goldberg had faced. He wasn't a one-trick character or a flash-in-the-pan talent. He was a machine, calculated, intense, and methodical. Fans admired him not because he was flashy, but because he was real. He made wrestling feel legitimate again. So when WWE chose this man to face Goldberg, the reactions were mixed. Some hoped for a torch-passing moment. Others feared the same fate that had befallen Owens and the Fiend. Would Gunther be just another victim? The build-up was cinematic. Vignettes aired showing Goldberg's classic dominance spliced against Gunther's modern warfare. The Old Guard versus the Iron General, they called it. For weeks, the story was crafted like a heavyweight showdown between two titans from different generations. But beneath the storytelling and pyro, one question kept fans awake at night. Was Goldberg being set up for yet another ego-driven squash? Or was this truly his farewell, where he would do what legends rarely do, pass the torch? Gunther, ever stoic, never showed fear. In interviews, he praised Goldberg's legacy, but made one thing clear: this is not your time anymore. That statement alone ignited the WWE universe. Gunther wasn't just defending a title, he was defending modern wrestling itself, a style built on psychology, ring storytelling, and grit. Goldberg, in contrast, was the embodiment of simplicity: strike, spear, jackhammer, done. If there was ever a generational clash, this was it. The night arrived, Saturday night's main event. The arena was electric. Chants of Goldberg echoed alongside Walter and Gunther, creating a soundscape of war. The entrances were epic. Goldberg marched through smoke like a warrior one last time. Gunther entered like a warlord, eyes locked on destruction. The bell rang, and the entire wrestling world held its breath. Because what happened next would either fix Goldberg's legacy or destroy it forever. Goldberg charged. Gunther sidestepped. Immediately, this wasn't a squash. It was a chess match, brute force versus battlefield strategy. Gunther chopped Goldberg with thunderous precision. Goldberg answered with a spear that sent shockwaves through the mat. Back and forth, blow for blow, it was chaos and beauty. For the first time in years, Goldberg was forced to wrestle. He wasn't dominating, he was surviving. And fans? They were loving every second of it. Midway through the match, Goldberg looked winded. The years had caught up. Gunther, however, was relentless, targeting the knee, dragging Goldberg into unfamiliar waters. He wasn't afraid, he was surgical. Still, Goldberg found moments of glory. A second spear nearly split Gunther in half. A jackhammer followed, but Gunther kicked out. He kicked out. The crowd erupted. This wasn't just a match anymore. It was redemption on both ends. Then came the climax. Gunther powerbombed Goldberg once, then again. The legend lay broken, staring at the ceiling lights. He reached to stand, painfully, slowly. But there was no miracle comeback, no third spear, just a final devastating lariat that silenced the crowd. The referee counted 1, 2, 3. Goldberg had lost. And in that moment, something unexpected happened. The fans stood up and they clapped, not out of pity, but out of respect. Gunther extended his hand. Goldberg, gasping for breath, accepted it. The crowd roared, not for the victor or the loser, but for the passing of an era. Goldberg had finally done what fans begged for years. He gave back. He didn't bury a rising star, he elevated one. And in doing so, his legacy had one last golden shimmer. Not of dominance, but of dignity. Wrestling Twitter exploded. Forums lit up. Is this the Goldberg we always wanted? But even in victory, whispers remained. Was this really Goldberg's final match? Or was WWE setting up one more surprise? One last shock to rattle the fans and squeeze the last drop of nostalgia from the legend's legacy? Because just when it seemed like Goldberg was finished, another name began trending. Another name from his past. Someone he never got closure with. The dust had barely settled after Goldberg's emotional loss to Gunther. The crowd was still processing the image, Goldberg lying flat in the ring, finally defeated with honor. For most, it felt like closure, a proper ending to a chaotic second act. But then, something strange happened. WWE didn't promote his retirement. There were no Hall of Fame vignettes, no final goodbye promo, no backstage thank you footage, just silence. And in wrestling, silence often means one thing: unfinished business. A few weeks later, cryptic promos began airing: static, smoke, broken glass. The words, "You never beat me," flashed on the screen in blood-red letters. Fans immediately knew. It wasn't just a tease, it was personal, because the one name Goldberg had never truly conquered was Roman Reigns. A match scheduled for WrestleMania 36 in 2020, canceled due to the pandemic. A dream clash left buried in history, until now. Roman was no longer the promising Samoan athlete of old. He was the tribal chief, the face of WWE, the man who crushed Cena, Lesnar, Edge, Bryan, and even Undertaker's mystique. His reign as undisputed champion had transcended wrestling. It was dominance personified. So when the rumors of Goldberg versus Roman resurfaced, fans were divided. Some called it forced. Others couldn't look away. This wasn't about titles anymore. This was about pride, about legacy, about proving whose yard it really was. The story wrote itself. Roman mocked Goldberg's past, calling him a dinosaur clinging to relevance. Goldberg, on the other hand, said he didn't need to beat Roman for a title, but for himself. "You escaped once, Roman. I won't let you walk away again." The buildup was nuclear, not because it was athletic brilliance, but because it was real. It was ego versus legacy, a torch that refused to be passed, and a generation that refused to surrender. The match was set for Clash at the Castle, not WrestleMania, not SummerSlam. WWE picked a historic venue in the UK, under Gothic skies where legends rise or vanish. Fans filled the stadium with roars that sounded more like a battlefield than a wrestling show. Roman entered with his bloodline flanking him, adorned in gold. Goldberg came alone. No fireworks, no security, just intensity. He was a warrior ready for war, not a legend seeking applause. As the bell rang, Roman played it slow. Mind games, smirks, taunts. Goldberg didn't waste time. He lunged forward with a spear that Roman barely dodged. That opening minute told the whole story. This wouldn't be a quick Goldberg match. Roman wanted to break him mentally before he broke him physically. But Goldberg had something left in the tank, something no one expected. The crowd gasped as Goldberg delivered not one, but two consecutive spears, each one shaking the ring. Roman barely kicked out. The tribal chief looked vulnerable for the first time in years. But then the tide turned. A low blow behind the ref's back, a distraction from Solo Sikoa, a Superman punch, a spear of his own. Roman pounded the mat. "Acknowledge me," he roared. But Goldberg didn't stay down. He got up, bloodied, broken, but standing. The crowd came alive. One last surge of adrenaline. He went for the final jackhammer, but collapsed. His body simply gave out. Roman seized the moment, guillotine locked in, the life drained from Goldberg's eyes. And just like that, the war was over. Roman didn't just win, he ended him. There was no post-match drama. Roman stood tall. Goldberg lay motionless. But as Roman exited, he paused at the ramp, turned and gave Goldberg a silent nod. A rare gesture of respect. And then, darkness. Silence. The screen faded to black with one final message. This time it's truly over. The wrestling world erupted, not in anger, but reflection. Goldberg's return had been messy, polarizing, and often frustrating. But in the end, he did it. He gave back, he made stars, he finished business, and above all, he went out on his shield. Not in a squash, not with politics, but in battle. A battle that proved he wasn't just a product of nostalgia, but a warrior willing to fall with dignity. And yet, the debate rages on. Was Goldberg's second WWE run a redemption story, or a legacy tarnished by poor booking? Did he elevate others, or was the cost too high? And most importantly, now that Goldberg is truly gone, who will the next Goldberg be? Who will rise from silence, spear through the noise, and divide fans like he once did? Let the fans decide. What do you think? Was Goldberg's return a triumph or a tragedy? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because the legend may be finished, but the conversation is far from over.